Today on Rambling About Cars, the LA Auto Show is happening right now, and holy spamoly, do we have a lot to talk about. There are all kinds of debuts from the epic new Porsche Cayman GT4 RS, all kinds of electric vehicles, concepts, Hyundai 7, Mazda CX-50. Showstoppers, it's podcast time. Let's jump right into it. I'm Christopher Smith. Bruce, Mr. Chris Bruce, across the way. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Before you yell at me, please like and subscribe. I've gotten yelled at the past few weeks. I'm putting it out right now. Like, subscribe. Do that.
I totally forgot. I totally forgot. You supposed okay, you can yell at me at that one. It's been a week, man. This is
So this episode is going to be a bit different than other episodes in that it is going to be truly rambling about cars. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. We are going to get through as much as possible. And we have a list that we are both looking at, and we're going to kind of pick and choose and go from there. The vast majority of it will be from the LA Auto Show. There'll be a couple things that might not be, but are at least related enough that it works. So yeah, with that, let's get the show started.
Yeah, and I mean, let me just give a little backstory really quick.
Sure.
Usually around auto shows, I mean, we're busy people.
Yep.
A lot will happen at auto shows for the last couple years or so. We really haven't had many big auto shows to talk about because of COVID, obviously. So this has been kind of a little bit of a reminder of how things used to be, putting in some long hours, trying to get all of the debuts written.
Well, we had Chicago, which was kind of fake. That was like a one-day thing. This was the first real one in, like 2 years, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was the show in Germany.
Yeah, Frankfurt.
But that tends to focus more on European vehicles and some global debuts. LA, man, I mean, this is the LA scene. This is the United States. That's obviously where we live. So there's a lot happening there. And for the record, listeners, we do have a big list of vehicles to get through.
Yeah.
We probably won't get through them all, but
probably not.
Bruce and I are going to be learning about some of these as you're learning about them, because we've been writing like crazy, but we haven't. I haven't personally had the time to look at all of these. We've written some, so yeah, it's going to be an experience. So let's just jump into it, man.
Yep. So there's an adage in show business that you don't start the show with a showstopper. So the first one here that we're going to start with, it's not the biggest news in the world, but it is interesting. And there's an even more interesting thing tangentially related to it. And that is that the 2022 Ford Mustang Shelby GT500, sorry, got to get it all in there, is getting a heritage package for the new model year. And that is essentially a unique color. They call it Brittany blue and stripes. And those stripes, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, those go over the entire vehicle, lower fascia, the hood, the roof, and then even over the rear deck and onto the back. And you can get those stripes in one of two ways. You can either get them as like a vinyl decal, which has kind of been the way stripes have been applied for a long time now. And that's fairly affordable. I mean, keep in mind, a 2022 GT500 starts at $73,465, and that's before the destination fee and the gas guzzler tax. This is not a cheap vehicle, but if you want those stripes just as vinyl decals, it adds $2,140. If you want them painted on, which is pretty rare still, especially in terms of more affordable vehicles like your Ferraris, your Lamborghinis. They've had painted stripes for a while, but kind of I can't call a $73,000+ car an everyman's car, but it's certainly a step closer in that direction. But if you want them painted on, it's $12,140 to get painted stripes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Mustang guy, and
you are.
I wouldn't pay $12,000 to have Ford paint my stripes on. I'm sorry, Ford.
As someone who has the vinyl stripes on my Mini, they aren't perfect. Like I've had to have on the Mini, they're white with then black pinstripes up the side, which is a bit different here. But I've had to have the black pinstriping replaced actually because over the years it just like delaminated. It hasn't worked. And so painted stripes,
Yeah.
you're never going to have that problem.
But I promise you, if you really want painted stripes on your car, just get it without the stripes and have your local body shop, like, you know, do it for $2 or $3 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, I have I have some interesting stripe experience. Of course, I mean, this is like 15, 20 years ago when I was doing stuff at Ford, you know, with the Shelby GTs. And I don't know, maybe that's where the painted stripe option came from. Because we had the Shelby GT, right? There was the Shelby GT500 that came back out in 2007, but then there was also just the Shelby GT, which was really just Ford Mustang GT with the California special front and rear fascias. They sent it out to Shelby in Vegas, and Shelby would put on stripes and badges and a bunch of other stuff. They were trying to keep the stripes like as proprietary as they could, so people just couldn't go out and clone it. And the vinyl stripes were just, I mean, they were just like the worst quality. If you have a Shelby GT out there, like an 07 or 08 Shelby GT with the original stripes, like put it in a freezer and never take it out, because that's going to be like the rarest of the rare cars, because those stripes would deteriorate so bad. So I don't know, maybe that's where they get the painted stripe option, but I mean, 12 grand. No. But I mean, then again,
but it's an option. Like, it's not like you have to pay that. If you're a guy out there and you're buying a GT500 and you're like, I want the painted stripes, it's available now. You know, it's that simple. It's, you know, they're not saying you have to pay that much. It's just, it's an option.
Yeah. But I mean, they're tugging at heartstrings. It's it's a shame that something as cool as the GT500 costs as much as it does. I don't know, maybe it's a good thing because it keeps that just kind of insane power out of maybe less experienced hands. I don't know. I'm sure there's also people out there with more money than brains that are buying them and then wrapping them up. But hey, Shelby stuff sells. I'm sure Ford will do really good with their new options.
Wait, I'm not quite done with the story yet, and then we'll kind of...
Okay.
So the other thing is, on the 2022 GT500, you can get, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it here on the left, you can get the code orange paint. And as far as we know right now, that's a no-cost option. Don't quote me on that, because we haven't heard one way or another, but it is one of the new colors in the palette. And so you can get it in code orange. And if that sounds familiar, that is a color that Ford Performance uses on kind of their top spec models. That is, it's something they only put on the top performance vehicles in their range. So your F-150 Raptor, your upcoming Bronco R, and then also the latest version of the Ford GT. Previously, those are the only ones with the code orange paint. And then now you can get it on the GT500 as well. So,
and you know, I'm not an orange person, but I think it looks awesome on the Mustang. Agreed. I think it looks spot on. So bring on code orange. I approve this message.
I've got some bad-ish news for you, and this just came out today. And Smith, I don't even know if you know about this unless you've been watching the site closely. And that is that the 2022 GT500 is losing the carbon fiber handling package. So that was a 1 year only option, and it was kind of cool. It got you all the stuff from the handling package, which here I have to look at. So you got adjustable strut top mounts, a catch can, gurney flap, and splitter wickers, plus 20-inch black painted carbon fiber wheels. And that's gone. And that means you will no longer be able to get black painted carbon fiber wheels on your 2022 GT500. You'll still be able to get them with a matte exposed carbon fiber finish, but that package costs, and if you were angry about the price of the stripes, that package costs $18,500 currently.
Yeah,
you do get way more than that. So you get the exposed carbon fiber wheels, you get exposed carbon fiber for the instrument panel, you get Michelin Pilot Cup Sport 2 tires, rear seat delete, Recaro front seats, a wheel locking kit, and then plus the catch can, the gurney flap, the splitter wickers, and the adjustable mounts. So you get some stuff, but for damn near 20 grand, that's a lot. Whereas the previous package where you could get the black painted ones was 10 grand. So half the price.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Ford just wasn't selling too many of those packages. Because I mean, it definitely had a difference on track performance for the GT500.
Totally.
I mean, everything that we saw, and then our own experience with Motor One editors. I mean, it certainly makes a difference, but yeah.
Yep. So I know I didn't
think
start with groundbreaking news, and we're going to get to bigger stuff as we go, but I just thought that was interesting, kind of changes for the GT500. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you. Tell us something more important.
Well, since we're talking about performance cars, do you want to talk about the new? I got to take a breath before I say this name. 2022 Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 RS. I got it out in one breath.
That's not the Club Sport model.
Well, I need to take a second breath for the Club Sport.
Yeah.
No, so I don't know if this is the biggest debut at the LA Auto Show. We knew it was coming. Right. Porsche always, I mean, they always do a really good job of keeping these things a secret.
They didn't keep this. Well, they kept the Club Sport a secret. The regular GT4 we knew about because we talked about it on the show, and we were saying that how great it would be to drive. We didn't know the specs at the time, but we knew it was coming.
Well, I mean, they sort of kept it a secret. I mean, we did know about the Club Sport, but yeah, I mean, Porsche they never put any camouflage on their stuff anymore, and it's not like the GT4 RS is completely rewriting the books. But it does get the 911 GT3's engine, 4-liter flat six, spinning to 9,000 RPMs, makes 493 horsepower in the Cayman. What's the power to weight ratio on that? 6.5 pounds per horsepower. I mean, it's a track monster. Porsche already told us that it laps the Nürburgring just over the 7-minute mark, which is crazy close to the 911 GT3. I mean, it makes the argument, do you need a 911? It's only available with the dual clutch transmission. I know some people have been saying, well, yeah, there's you can see a center stalk in there. Let's jump into the pictures here and take a quick look to show people what they're talking about. You can shift this car with the paddles on the steering wheel. But that stalk in the middle is really just like a sequential shifter for the gearbox. It's not a.
And they did that on the GT3 as well. They pointed that out. So the current model of the 911, it has this weird stumpy shifter on it that, depending on who you talk to, it either looks like a USB port or it looks like an electric razor or something like that. It looks bad, but for the GT3, you get something that looks like a true manual gear shift, but it's not. It's an automatic gear shift. It just it looks better. And they're doing that for the GT4 RS as well.
Right. So, I mean, obviously it's the hardest hardcore Cayman that ever came in. I think I mentioned in one of my articles. It's got the big swan spoiler on the back that's adjustable. It's got added aero up underneath. They tweaked the diffusers. It's got adjustable front spoilers. It's got vents in the wheels. Those little corner windows that used to be windows on the regular Cayman, those are now more vents for cooling. But I mean, you get inside, I mean, this is still a street car. This is still a street legal car. You still get all kinds of luxury inside. And yeah, I think I've said before that, between Cayman or 911, I would still choose 911. In fact, I think, what was it, about a month ago or a month and a half ago, we were talking about this coming up. And I said, no, I'm still taking the 911. Now that it's out and I'm looking at it in a body that's not just black, it's like, I think I would have this Cayman, this GT4 RS.
It looks great. And for the road, and we've kind of talked about this before, that 300 to 500 horsepower is kind of perfect for the road. That, there's a sweet spot because you want to be able to accelerate. You want to feel that kind of push back in the seat, but you also don't want to hit immediate go to jail speeds.
Right.
And so there's this magic point that's depending on the vehicle and the vehicle's weight and things like that. It's somewhere between 300 and 500 horsepower. And it's just perfect for driving a vehicle on the street. You're not like supercar, just like stupid speed, hit 0 to 60 in 1.9, 2.5 seconds. but it's also not it's not slow by any means either. It's just kind
Right.
of this perfect balance, and that's what this hits. And yeah, I would be, if you weren't, let's say you were going to do a track day twice a year, this would be perfect because you could drive it around every day. You know, maybe not where I live where there's a winter, but let's say you live.
No, you could, because when you, and this is another article that just went up today. I won't list it up here. You can go to motor1.com. By the way, you should go to motor1.com and look at all of our LA Auto Show coverage, because we have articles galore there, including a piece on the new Porsche Cayman 718. Sorry, the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 RS configurator that is already live.
Yep.
And talking about winter, Bruce, Porsche will sell you snow chains for the tires. It is listed in their configurator. It's listed in like the accessories, you know, like the generic accessories section. They'll charge you just $625 for one snow chain.
I didn't see
you
that.
You can specify if you want quantity 1, 2, 3, 4, however many.
Did you see the child safety seat option?
Yeah, well, as I understand it, that wasn't an actual seat. Those were just like
the mat,
like special latches that were $500.
Yeah. But
because
like, I want to meet the father or mother who is strapping their child into this and being like, "Come on, infant, we've got to go." I don't have children. Wherever you take your infants, we are taking you in a 718 Cayman GT4 RS.
You know what? I would totally do that a lot. I mean, I wouldn't get like the $500 Porsche option, but I'd have a little car seat that take the child out for an occasional little sprint.
Well, you know what we need to do? We need to talk to our new boss, Seth Mearsma, who has a 4-month-old and who had a McLaren GT last week, and find out if the 4-month-old got to take a ride in that. Then we'll know.
Well, he was a little nervous because apparently it started to rain shortly after he got it.
No, it started to snow because it started snowing here at the same time.
Yeah, well, then he posted on Twitter later. It's like, what do you think? And I'm just like, come on, man, just go. Yeah. But yeah, Porsche will sell you chains. Of course, everybody knows Porsche loves their options. They love to charge a lot of money for their options.
Yeah, Porsche will let you modify just about it. And it's one of the few, and I think this is technically possible from brands like Bentley or Rolls-Royce, but Porsche is the only one that puts it online, and you can specify, if you go to Porsche configurators for any of their models, everything about every car. You want the bolsters to be a different color of the seats? Fine. You want the seat belts to be a different color? Fine. You want the gauge faces to be a different color? Whatever. And they will let you spec all of that out on their configurator.
And there's a fee for each
step. God, yeah. Yes.
Well, for the 718 Cayman GT4 RS, the base price is $141,000 and change. By the time you get delivery in there, I think it's like $143,000. So I mean, it's the fastest, it's the most hardcore Cayman, it's also the most expensive. But jumping into the configurator, Bruce, I don't know if you saw my article. If you did, just pretend that you didn't.
Okay.
And tell me, how much do you think the most expensive 718 Cayman GT4 RS costs?
So I don't know the exact number, but I know it's over $200,000 because
$218,000 and change. And that doesn't include the little accessories at the end that are generic accessories for any car. Like Porsche will sell you a $6,300 luggage set with the Cayman GT4 RS. That's obviously not designed to fit in the Cayman GT4 RS. But it goes along with those tire chains. You can get special valve stem covers that are like $60 a piece. I mean, just generic toolkits, generic covers. We didn't include any of that in our most expensive. The very first option, you were talking about customization. The very first option that you can choose on their configurator is basically a custom exterior color. And when I say custom, it's not, choose from our special group. It's whatever damn color you want. You go to Porsche,
a paint chip or a color swatch, and we'll make sure
we'll mix up that paint. We'll mix up that paint and we'll paint it. Checking that box also adds a bunch of other packages, but that first option, $41,000.
Yeah.
By the time I checked all the boxes to fully option the new 718 Cayman GT4 RS, I could basically buy a Cayman S just in the option. It was like 75 grand in options.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, there's no denying. I think it looks cool. I've even been looking at like Facebook comments on this car, which auto journalists. Here's the thing: we never look at Facebook comments because they're always it's just like the people that just don't really. It's like they'll see a headline and then they'll comment about their mother or something. And it's like, so, you generally don't look at that, but I've been looking at those. Near universal praise for this car, that, how it looks, the performance, that engine. So yeah, well done Porsche on that.
It's kind of an undeniable vehicle that, it just blends everything well. Yeah, the price is high. That's kind of the issue. So our boss, Brandon Turkis, he said that he would rather have the GTS 4.0 and he would save the rest of the money. I see his point.
Yeah.
But also, if I had the money burning a hole in my pocket, I could see upgrading to the RS. They're both perfectly valid options. And I just hope Porsche is kind of slowly chipping away at that kind of 911 elitism that, anything that's not a 911 isn't good enough. Yeah.
Or, I mean, if that's not enough for you, you could still go to the 2022 Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 RS Club Sport. Whew, I got it out in one breath. That's quite a name. In the time it takes me to say that name, the car is probably doing over 100 miles an hour.
Certainly.
This car it's the 718 Cayman GT4 RS, just everything turned up to 11, and it's not street legal. This is a track only car. But I mean, it's not just, track only, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You can still drive it. No.
No, this is track only. They build this GT4 class racing.
Yeah, they build this as a race car. It comes set up with a full roll cage, with a stripped interior, with the fuel cell, fire suppression system. It's got pneumatic jacks underneath for quick pit stops. Mm-hmm. And the engine, it's the same engine. It's the same transmission, but the engine here is cranked up to 500 horsepower. So you get a little more power out of the Club Sports. As I said in the article, the only thing this car needs is a driver. I mean, Porsche sets it up turnkey right from the factory. Mm-hmm. We're taking a look at the interior here, and you can see, I mean, it's this is no nonsense. This is a full-on race car. It will set you back a little bit, 220 some thousand, I think.
I have to only a hair more than a fully optioned example.
But you know what? You're not going to get a stereo in this car unless you consider, there it is, $229,000 before tax. You don't go to your Porsche dealer to get one of these. You go to Porsche Motorsports North America to get one, because these are for race teams, and these cars will be racing in 2022. So if you want to go racing, you don't want to race in 911. You know what? Porsche has you covered. And I think it's a good looking car.
I could be totally wrong here. I don't know that there's a GT4 spec 911 available right now, at least not that I know of. So this is kind of Porsche's entry level full on race car right now. If you want to buy a turnkey race car from Porsche, this is what you get. You can step up. There are 911 GT3s and stuff like that, but this is where you start, and we obviously don't know how competitive it is or anything like that, but it looks damn good. So
I think it looks fantastic. I think it'll be very competitive. I think it has the power. And going back to what you said earlier, Bruce, about usable power, another thing about these cars, it's a high revving engine. Mm-hmm. The torque peak, I think the peak torque is something like 330 or 350 pounds. I mean, the torque is low because you're spinning the beans out of it.
Yep.
That actually makes it, I think, a little more streetable in some respect, because you're not just going to breathe on the throttle. You're not going to sneeze and all of a sudden this thing is just going to, snap your neck. So, well done, Porsche. you've converted a 911 lover into somebody that wouldn't mind driving around in a Cayman. And I tell you what, after the GT4 RS debuted, I mean, it's encouraged me to look at other Caymans.
So funny you should say that. I have been looking at first gen Caymans for a while now. So I can't remember. It was one of the big buff books. It was either Motor Trend or Car and Driver had a second gen, and they had a ton of problems with it because there was no oil dipstick, and it was telling them constantly either they had put too much oil into the engine or too little oil into the engine, and there was no way to actually check it out. The first gens, though, didn't have that problem, and it's made me, like, obviously between this and that, like, a first gen Cayman just seems perfect. Like, even if it's the base model, you know, with the small flat six versus the S that had a slightly bigger engine, I feel like that'd be a super fun car. I hope they start, once used car prices in general start depreciating, I feel like it's gonna be one to look at.
Could very well be. Could very well be. Bruce,
well,
you want to move on a little bit here?
I do. Yeah. So we're going to do one more and then let's do some comments. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah. Pick something. Make it interesting and fun and exciting.
Well, I'm going to talk about some twins.
Oh boy. I think I know what you're talking about here.
Well, there's two options there. We saw two twins in LA. Okay. I'm going to go with are the other ones? No. Well, no, the other ones are electric too.
There's a lot of electric.
I'm going to go with the tiny twins first.
Okay.
So we are going to start with the Toyota BZ4X and its sibling. Give me just a second here. The Toyota Solterra. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm pulling that up now. These two vehicles, they ride on exactly the same platform. And if you look at them, they look identical. Basically, the cladding is a bit different. The front grills are a bit different, but
yeah, I mean, I'll give Subaru credit. The front fascia is at least different enough. They've managed to capture Subaru's kind of gaping mouth look there.
And what the other bit of credit I want to give to Subaru is that they chose a real name, even if it's so. Solterra is a mashup, and excuse me for anyone that in here that does speak Latin. I do not, so I might mess this up. Sol is the Latin word for sun. Terra is the Latin word for earth. Solterra is the sun and the earth. It's a real name, whereas the Toyota BZ4X.
That's a stormtrooper designation. Let's be honest.
It does sound.
That's a stormtrooper.
I am 80% way through of knowing what it means. BZ is Toyota's designation for Beyond Zero, which are for their electric vehicles. 4 represents where it exists in the lineup. We know they have Toyota is already saying that there are going to be 7 vehicles in this lineup. Mm-hmm. They started somewhere in the middle. The X part is a bit less clear because originally when we had written about this, we thought that there's going to be non-X versions, and those would be front wheel drive, and X versions for all wheel drive. However, there are both front and all wheel drive versions of the BZ4X. Right. So that wasn't correct. So I don't know what X stands for. It's just there.
I mean, we were talking about this earlier this week. I mean, we might even do an article up on Motor One.
Yeah.
Just to kind of dip a little bit further into the name, because BZ4X, who's going to remember that? We've been talking about this for a couple months now, and I still have to force myself to think about the order. Okay. It's not ZB4X.
Nope.
It's not B4ZX. It's not ZZBTHX1138. It's
good reference.
BZ4X. Do you like how I slipped it in there? Well, since we're going with the Star Wars references.
Oh no, that's just a George Lucas reference.
It sounds like a stormtrooper name.
It does.
This is the 4th, so it's the middle. You're starting in the middle, like the Star Wars saga. I might be nerding out a little.
Yeah,
might be nerding.
4.
Could Toyota be pulling a fast one here?
I like what you're doing there.
Is there some sort of connection, or have I just had too much schnapps?
Maybe both. I think both. So real quick, I'm a movie nerd. I'm throwing this out. So George Lucas's his first theatrical film was this film called THX 1138. He included it in all of his subsequent films. There are references to it.
Yep.
In fact, in Indiana Jones, the first one, which is not Temple of Doom, not Last Crusade. What's the first Indiana Jones?
Raiders
of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
In the scene where he's fighting like the big German guy and the cool plane is taxiing around, it's like yawing around. There's a reference over the thing, and it's all in German. It's like "Te ha X 113 and he even includes it in there. So just cool nerdy film stuff.
And you know what? But speaking of which, let's spin this to car related. I think I wrote it. It must have been earlier this year, maybe even last year during the pandemic. If you go to motor1.com, search George Lucas, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Like one of his early film.
His early film at USC.
Early college films. This beautiful, just nothing but pure sound and driving. I think it was at Willow Springs Raceway.
It was
with a classic Lotus. Great stuff, man.
Yeah.
Go to motor1.com
and totally a car guy. Apparently, I read this years ago and I tried finding it recently. Allegedly, when he was in high school or college, he was essentially the guy that swept the floors at the Shelby garage. Like, he was a car guy through and through. But anyway, let's talk about Subaru and the Toyota rather than
let's talk about Subaru. Hey, we're rambling here. We said it's going to be a shotgun approach.
Totally.
But as soon as there's a gap, I have my George Lucas article pulled up ready to share.
Okay. Well, no, you have to share that here in just a second because it's a really cool thing and I want to promote it and it's cool. So anyway, so there's the Solterra and the BZ4X. I am so happy that Subaru decided to give it a real name. Even if Solterra isn't a real word, I can say Solterra. Like, and if I have any knowledge of language, I can think, terrain, solar system. Like, I can think of like things that go with Solterra rather than BZ4X. It sounds like a stormtrooper, like you said.
BZ, it's lifeless, and I will die on this hill. And I will always be right, even in death. Forget your alphanumerics, automakers. Give cars regular names. It's easier to separate them.
Yeah.
You're going to have better brand identity. It gives a vehicle a little bit of a personality, even for the person that just uses a vehicle, just has a basic appliance. Having that name still, you make a better connection with people. I know the Germans love to have their 2 Series and their 4 Series and their A4 and their S8s and their S-Class, and we don't have to be like that. I think that's why Cadillac just kind of took a bit of a nosedive, because they got rid of Eldorado and DeVille and all of these names that had meaning and history for decades. Yeah, towards the end, they weren't that great, but it doesn't mean you can't revive them. Instead, you get the CTS and the SRX and the TTX and the
Lincoln did it the worst, where they had
and
MKX and
MKZ,
MKC,
MKT. It's like, what the hell is the difference?
Right.
Give me a Continental.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
just
rant over. That's sort of related to Toyota.
It is kind of related
to the ZTB. Solterra. Can we just call it Solterra? It's a Solterra.
They're the same vehicle. We might as well call it that.
Same vehicle.
But anyway, so the Solterra. So yes, just like the BZ4X, you are getting the Solterra is only coming in all-wheel drive. You will not get a front-wheel drive version of this vehicle. So with all-wheel drive, you got 215 horsepower, 246 pound-feet of torque. It was interesting in Toyota's press release, which I will show you in just a second. They refused to give a range estimate for their all-wheel drive version of the BZ4X. Subaru, though, gave us a range estimate for this, and since it's the same vehicle with the same output, we have to imagine the range is nearly the same. So 220 miles, 354 kilometers. And we have some commenters in the story that we're looking at right now. They're very happy with that. And they're kind of right. The Ioniq 5 and some other vehicles, they have similar or better power outputs with more range. my only excuse, and it's not really an excuse, my only explanation is that this is Subaru's first ever electric vehicle. They got to start somewhere. And if we're being honest, it's just a rebadged Toyota with a different nose.
Yep.
It is what it is. I don't suspect this vehicle is going to be super impressive, or super, not impressive, strong seller is what I mean. And what's interesting is, and I will swap over to this in just a minute, is that Subaru touted that this is the first Toyota touted this is the first Toyota ever with X mode tech. And if anyone knows about Subaru, Subaru have been using what they call X mode for years. And it's because it's the exact same tech. In essence, it is a fake version of a low range gearbox. And so I'm going to stop sharing Subaru here. I'm going to start sharing Toyota.
And I mean, let's be honest, Toyota or Subaru, we're totally confusing them already, right? Subaru,
but look, it's
lately
the same vehicle. Like, they're the same thing.
It is.
And as I wrote here, the all-wheel drive version of the BZ4X, it does get the X mode for extra traction when you're off-roading. Basically, it is, since there's no technical transmission, there can't be a low range, but it kind of simulates that, is the best way I can say it. It also, both vehicles also have what they're calling grip control, which is an electronic
tires.
No, an electronic version of a limited slip differential.
I mean, I love, hey, it's the marketing team. They're trying.
Yeah, it's total marketing and
grip control.
Right. But is that different from Positraction or Sure Grip or whatever they called it back in the day? Like, they're all versions of limited slip differentials. It's just, especially here with an electric car, there's no real differential, so you have to call it something else. And so grip control is what they came up with, which is technically exactly what it is. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's, hey, the marketing people, good on you for trying to make the sale.
Yep.
Just like the WRX with its like 20% quicker shifting.
Oh, God,
and it's CVT.
Yeah, it never shifts. How can it shift faster if it never shifts? But yeah, both vehicles, they go on sale in mid 2022. They'll be 2023 model year vehicles. We don't have prices on either yet. I would, since it's all-wheel drive only, I would expect the Subaru to start at a little bit more. But in terms of price, you're going to be able to get the Toyota in front-wheel drive. So that's probably going to be the cheapest one. But I can't imagine they're going to differentiate the all-wheel drive Toyota and the all-wheel drive Subaru much, simply because they're the same vehicle. Like, the only difference is the front fascia, basically.
I mean, Subaru, I think, is angling a little bit more towards the adventure vehicle kind of feel, where Toyota is more of the just nice, sure-footed on the street with some. Didn't Toyota say like, we have our new BZ4X with off-road capability? And I mean, I suppose you can take it off-road. I can take my Mustang off-road too.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not going to be crawling rocks at Moab though.
No. So yeah, it is what it is. But we're at 38 minutes. So let's do some questions. How about that?
You want to do some comments? We can do some comments. We had a very robust audience last week. We had comments on our article at motor1.com. We had comments on our YouTube video. We received an email. We received an email very, very late. Well, I guess not late last week.
Either very late or very early, depending on how you want to consider it.
Yeah, we received the email too late to talk about on last week's episode.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about it here, and we're going to talk about it right now because this comes from a person named Parker. Parker, we really appreciate you emailing us. Hey, guys, my name is Parker, 16 years old, right at that age where cars are awesome. But I have an almost unhealthy obsession with cars. No, you don't. There's no such thing. No, not unhealthy. Not unhealthy. Go enjoy cars, especially while they still make noise. Which is a nice segue here into the rest of his email. Here's my prompt. What do you think of the Kia EV6? Does it have what it needs to beat Tesla? Instead, it seems like it's almost been forgotten. It looks positively gorgeous, has great range, has supercar level performance variant, and has what I feel like we need to focus on instead of range: ridiculously fast charging speeds. One of, if not the fastest charging. Anyways, I absolutely love your podcast. Thank you very much for listening. And I wanted to get the chance to have my comment featured before this podcast blows up. Keep up the great work. Well,
Fingers
thank
crossed,
you very
man.
much. Thank you very much for the comments. I promise you, when, and yes, I say when the podcast blows up, we are still going to be reading comments. We can't ramble about cars, just the two of us. If it's just me and Bruce, we're chatting about cars, and we share so many opinions that it's usually just a chat. We want to ramble. We want to have some good, healthy debate. So no matter how big the channel gets, we are always going to be looking at comments. And I appreciate you sending this one in. I think you have a very good point about the Kia EV6 being almost forgotten about. And I say that because I wrote the debut article at Motor One about the Kia EV6, and I had to review it after reading your email because I couldn't remember that much about what I wrote. And I mean, yeah, 500 some horsepower. I think you are also onto a very interesting point about charging speeds versus range. Big range, obviously, it's going to make you feel a little bit better knowing that you have a long ways to go. But especially after having my first EV experience a couple weeks ago, fast chargers are available, but they're not as common as just some of the slower speed chargers. So when I was driving the Mach-E, I mean, I'm curious about charging. I was a little surprised to find sort of a lack of really high speed capabilities. The quickest I ever charged was, I think, adding about 20 miles of range in an hour. The Mach-E is capable of doing much more than that. But when you get to a point where you can charge, 100 miles in just a couple minutes, I think that's going to ease a lot of people's worry over just having bigger range and slower charging speed. So yeah, I don't know if the Kia EV6 is ready to beat Tesla. I guess it depends on, on the quality, on how things kind of shake out. I know Tesla, there are some people that just say it's the best thing ever, and there are others that are like, yeah, look at the Tesla build quality. There's to be continued, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. But thanks for sending in this comments and for reminding us of the EV6, because I like the way it looks as well. I think and I've said this many times, I think Hyundai and Kia right now, they're really killing it on a lot of their designs. Not all of them, which we might talk about here in a bit, but most of them, I think they're doing pretty well.
So I just want to chime in on this real quick. I don't know if they're going to beat Tesla, or, I don't actually even know what that means at this point. Like, Tesla, if you look purely at stock prices, they're one of the biggest companies in the world, but I don't know. It gets complicated from there. But just in terms of the EV6 and in terms of charging, I don't know how much. I think the charging rate and speed and things like that matter when you just look at them on a page. I don't know how much they matter in the real world, though, because you think about an EV, and let's say you can go 200 miles on a charge, which is actually fairly small by modern standards. But that's plenty for most people most of the time. You think about you're commuting to work, 200 miles. If you're doing 100 miles each way and back, that's a hell of a commute. That, you're basically only going to be doing that a few times a year. Even, let's get really extreme and saying every weekend you are going on some sort of road trip, and that's when you need to do that. Still, that means 6 days a week. The range is plenty for you, and you can just plug it in at your home. And I think that's one of the major advantages of EVs, is that the gas station is in your garage for many people. I know people live in apartments or whatnot, so maybe they don't have a garage, but for a lot of people, if you have a garage and you have a 220 volt outlet or something like that, and you can hire an electrician and they can install something, that once you have that, you have the gas station literally in your garage.
Yep.
You plug your vehicle in at night. You go in, you have dinner, you watch TV, you go to bed, you go to sleep, you wake up the next morning, your vehicle is fully charged. It's ready to go. And you might have that 200, 250, 300 miles, and that's plenty. Like that'll get you most of the way through. And I think that's what the real advantage is. But I think we just have to instill that in people that, there's this initial kind of investment. And it's not a big investment. From what I understand, a charger is like $300 to $600, maybe $800. It's not.
It depends on the output that you want, but generally, if you invest 800 to 1,000, I think, in a home charger, you'll be able to get some pretty fast speeds.
Yeah.
And for the record, the Mach-E that I had a couple weekends ago, I did about 200 miles. I didn't need to charge it because it had about 210 miles of range, but I didn't want to give it back to Ford on an empty battery. And I also wanted to just experiment with charging to see what it was like. I only paid for charging at one location. So I did 200 miles and I basically fueled up for $1.75.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have even needed to pay that because the hotel I ended up staying at a lot of hotels now.
And how much range did that get you?
The $1.75, that put me back up to, I think, about 25 miles of range.
Okay. Yeah. Even on, a gallon of gas is, depending on where you live, I'm going to call it $3. Maybe it's $2.80, maybe it's $3.20, whatever. But for a lot of cars, that's not going to get you 20 miles. So yeah, that's impressive.
And keep in mind, that was at a very busy public charging station.
Sure.
Where you're paying a fee to use their equipment. You're paying a certain fee for the electricity. I charged at two other locations where it was actually, two other locations where it was complimentary.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice. So next question. And
next question. Next comment.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to address this. This is from our buddy Elric. And he said, "Thank you for continuing to make these podcasts. While I don't follow the developments in the electric car world closely, this episode made me think that I should, especially with commentary around the Rivian from Mr. Malogny. It seems to be a great car. As a side note, and this is a forward-looking question, can you please comment on the rumored McLaren acquisition by Audi? Why do you think that it might happen now, and what does it mean for the rest of the industry? What does McLaren gain? What does Audi gain? And what does it mean for their other brands like Lamborghini? You're my go-to podcast for everything relating to cars. Thanks again for the fun and entertaining podcast." And then he actually put it in an edit. "Since I posted this, McLaren denied the rumors. Worth examining the what ifs." And so I commented to him that this was big enough news that I wanted to, it's worth commenting on. Thanks for popping that up, Smith. So if you're watching on YouTube, Smith has our story up about it, or our second story, actually. We ran one on Sunday as well. And so McLaren, Smith, if you would scroll down, I will read McLaren's comment to us, and then I'm going to pop up something that kind of, it doesn't disagree with that. It adds context to that. So Laura Conrad, she is the PR manager for McLaren. She told us McLaren Group is aware of the news media report stating that it has been sold to Audi. This is wholly inaccurate, and McLaren is seeking to have the story removed. McLaren's technology strategy has always involved ongoing discussions and collaboration with relevant partners and suppliers, including other car makers. However, there has been no change in the ownership structure to McLaren Group. So that seems pretty cut and dry. However, I think there's a lot more nuance to it. And what I mean by that is I'm going to show the first story, and this is going to take me a second.
Well, just reading that official announcement from McLaren tells me all I need to know, that, hey, McLaren's technology strategy always involved ongoing discussions and collaboration with relevant partners and suppliers, including car makers. So, they're leaving the door open to say, Yeah, we're always talking to people. So,
Right.
I mean, of course there's going to be something there.
So the story from the day before, we ran that very early Monday morning. Sunday evening, we ran a story, and this came from Automobilwoche, which is a German site. However, if you guys have ever heard us reference Automotive News or Automotive News Europe, Automobilwoche is the German version of that site. They're all kind of affiliated, and they don't do a lot of like rumor mongering. It's very much an industry focused site. And the rumor from them was that Audi was going to buy the Formula One operations from McLaren, and that BMW was going to buy their. I'm sorry, Audi was going to buy the Formula One operations. BMW was going to buy the automotive operations. BMW eventually came back and said that that was wrong, but Audi said that they routinely consider various ideas for cooperation, which is kind of exactly what the PR person said. And I want to add to that, the Financial Times did a very good look at this, and they kind of split things. The person who did their story is someone named Peter Campbell. And according to him, here is what is actually happening. There are very, very early talks about an F1 deal. The due diligence of that is not expected to end until the spring. So we're still months out from this. But that VW wants to separate a Porsche and Audi Formula One teams and also sell that tech to rivals. So Volkswagen Group would buy McLaren, specifically the F1 part of McLaren, and then they would have a Porsche and Audi Formula One team. And also, hey, if anyone else wants this tech, we'll sell it off. And they apparently see money there. And so it all gets very confusing and complicated, but it's very interesting. And I guess my answer to Elric's question is that, to me, right now, it looks like the McLaren F1 team might end up being sold. But based on the comments from BMW and kind of from other stuff we're hearing, that McLaren might still be an automaker, but they wouldn't be a Formula One team. That, one part of the company would get sold, the other part of the company would still be around. That's the best I can do right now.
Whew.
Smith,
there is a lot happening there.
Yeah. And this was just in like 3 days of reporting. It was basically Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of this week. That
the thing that
a lot's going on.
Oh yeah. And the thing that I want to point out is, you made a reference of these sources being very credible. That's why we went ahead and ran the story, because
totally.
I mean, these aren't just kind of, some fly by night influencer.
No, Automobilwoche, the Financial Times, like these are not just like random places.
Yeah, no, solid sources. So that's combined with the phrasing that we saw from McLaren, something's going on. McLaren wholly denied that the company, that the organization structure has changed at all. Hey, that's fine. But clearly,
what that other reporter is saying, though, is that the talks are underway, that the due diligence is happening and might not happen until this spring. So the comment from McLaren could be entirely accurate, that nothing has changed right now.
Right.
But that behind closed doors, that there are still these negotiations underway. We don't know.
We know McLaren has had some difficulty, financially speaking here in the last few years. So I'm sure McLaren is looking for partners to go forward. So I guess my take on this is to say to be continued.
Yeah.
We'll be watching it. Of course, you want to go to motor1.com for all the latest. We will have all the latest. Let's read one more. Can we do one more comment here before we move on? I know we've been on this here a little bit.
We're good.
But I wanted to get this from YouTube. This comment is from Blake on our YouTube channel, Motor One Podcasts. And this came up shortly after the podcast aired. So Blake, you're right on the ball.
I think he commented within an hour or two of the podcast going up.
For a little bit of background, last week was the big EV episode that people have been waiting for. We finally talked about all kinds of electric cars, including the Tesla Model S Plaid. We had a great special guest with Tom being on the program, and Tom drove the Model S Plaid, talked about just the brutal speed, and then we all had a conversation about just how dangerous that kind of power can be for somebody who's not used to. Even if you're used to 400 or 500 horsepower in a car that does 0 to 60 in 4 or 3.5 seconds, 1.9
is a whole other world.
That's still another level of holy crap, what am I doing? And we talked about just the dangers of people getting into cars like that without really experiencing. And Blake says, I don't know when the podcast was made, but Tom's prediction about the Plaid has already come true. A driver plowed through a house at 116 miles an hour, killing his passenger and a resident in the house. We took delivery of a Plaid in August, quickly discovered that the front end goes so light under hard acceleration that we will never dare to use all of its accelerative capability unless we're actually trying to kill ourselves or someone else. Please don't do that. And yes, any car with any amount of power, it commands a lot of respect. And Bruce, you did just a little bit of background. Not that we don't believe you, Blake. We do.
We're journalists. We double check everything.
We always try to double check. And yeah, I mean, Blake, you're absolutely true. This is spot on. This actually occurred. Bruce, I think you were saying that it was near Tampa where it happened.
Yeah, Palm Harbor, Florida.
Yeah.
Apparently it's near Tampa, from what I understand. But yeah, 2 people were killed because they plowed into a house in a 2021 Tesla Model S Plaid. The story just says at high speed, but looking at it, I would totally believe it was very, very high speed. And yeah, the car hit and killed one of the 3 residents of the home, a 69-year-old woman. So and then, I'm sorry, a 43-year-old man from Odessa died at the hospital. So just terrible. Like, but it reiterates what Tom was saying, that like you have to respect a vehicle like a Model S Plaid that, yeah, it has just stupid amounts of performance, but that doesn't mean you can just put your foot down and autopilot or FSD or whatever is going to steer you out of trouble. You're still at the wheel, and you got to be careful.
And I don't want to just pick on Tesla specifically, because there's a whole host of cars out there with incredible performance capabilities. Before you mash the gas, I mean, people are going to do it no matter how much we say don't. So for God's sakes, at least put yourself in a completely different mindset. Whatever you've experienced before, multiply it by 10 and then multiply it by 100 and put your expectations so far down the road that you can't see. But really, don't do it at all. Go to a track if you really wanted to get to know your car. One of the things that I did in my younger days, the first time I went to an actual track for a track day was probably the single greatest learning experience behind the wheel of a car, because I was able to push it in an environment that was safe, where there were no walls. This was Gingerman Raceway in South Haven, Michigan. That to this day remains one of my favorite tracks, because it's just in the middle of nowhere. There are no trees. There's only one wall along the pit road. You can push, and if you make a mistake, you're going to slide into grass, and that's it. And just spending an afternoon there on a track day taught me so much about not just the vehicle I'm driving, but my ability as a driver and ways that I can improve. Do that once. Go to a track, figure out, especially if you have a brand new car that has a lot of power, go to a track, get a taste for that power. If you can afford something that powerful, you can afford to spend $100 or so to go to a track. And
totally.
And
if you can afford $140,000
a
Model S, you can afford $100 for a Saturday to take it around the track.
Right. So Blake, thank you very much for that comment. We're very sorry to hear that news. That it's never a good thing, but just stay safe out there, folks. Keep your wits about you.
And just real quick, I wanted to say that Tom also commented on that. None of us knew. So that incident happened in September. None of us knew about that when we recorded that episode. That was news to us that he brought to our attention. Tom, we all commented. We did not know about that. So
yeah.
And
you know what, for everybody else listening, you can email us always, podcast@motor1.com. Obviously, we read your emails and we read them on the air when we have time. You can also comment on the article that goes up every Friday around noon Eastern time on motor1.com. Every podcast gets an article. You can go to our YouTube channel, Motor One Podcast. We really want you to go there and subscribe.
Ideally,
because
yes, please.
We do have our subscriber challenge. We get 1,000 subs by the end of the year. Me and Bruce are going to do whatever you tell us to.
Damn right.
And we're a little scared. So listen to us, subscribe, tell your friends. Motor One Podcast on YouTube. We love having you along. We're a little long here. Let's talk about maybe a couple more cars here.
I think we have enough time for 2 more. I forget. Did I do the last one or did you do the last one?
You did the last one. We were talking about the Subaru BZTH Solterra X.
Yep. So you get this one.
Okay. Well, gosh, put me on the spot here. Do you
I can do it if you want.
Do we want to talk about the Integra prototype? Because technically that's an LA Auto Show debut.
You know what? I had that tab pulled up. So yeah, let's.
Okay, because we've talked about it before. But I mean,
we didn't have specs at the time. We didn't have a lot of details at the time. So
we didn't have specs. So okay, let's talk about the Integra prototype revealed with Civic Si Power, fastback style. Our man in the field, Clint Simone, video director, did an awesome job with a first look video at the Integra.
Here, I'm just gonna play the video and I'll mute the audio while we're watching.
So yeah, you want to go to Motor One Podcast YouTube. You can see what we're talking about here. If you're not there, we're talking about a Honda Civic. We're talking
about Honda Civic Si.
We're talking about Honda Civic Si that has an Integra TLX front. And
I like the decal though. It's very 1980s. I like the decal along the lower side.
That decal is ridiculous. It has a ridiculous big Integra decal along the bottom of its yellow body. But I mean, let's be honest. It's kind of what we were hoping it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's a Honda Civic Si 5-door hatch with an Acura styled front end
with a different nose and a slightly different rear. And otherwise it's,
but
a nicer interior, I guess.
Nicer interior, but I mean, it's the same power.
Yep.
It's the 1.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo.
Yep.
And that's what I think 200 horsepower.
So I can't scroll down at the moment because I'm showing it. I believe you're right. It's either 198 maybe. But right around 200. Yeah.
Yeah.
You will be able to get it with a manual gearbox, which is nice.
Yep.
And an undisclosed automatic. We are suspecting that might be the CVT. I'm hoping that's not true.
It probably will be.
It probably will be. I would really rather have, a 6, 7, 8 speed automatic, but it's probably going to be the CVT.
And of course, remember, this is a prototype. This isn't the new Integra. This is the Integra prototype. It's the near production model.
But let's look at Honda and Acura in the past. Whenever they say prototype and they put that on a concept, it's going to be really close. There are going to be some nips and tucks and tweaks here and there. This is basically what you're getting.
I mean, I guess the optimist in me always hopes when automakers reveal their near production prototypes, they're doing it so they can listen to feedback and then make changes that people want.
I think it's too late for that.
But I bet $1 gazillion the production Integra is already set in stone. And I got to be honest. Earlier, I was talking about the Porsche, 718 Cayman GT4 RS receiving near universal praise on social. I've been looking at Integra and it's the exact opposite.
I
mean, this isn't just Bruce and Smith talking about how much they want the 90s back. a lot of people are not happy with this car. And
so I raised this in our team's chat. It's just the fact that yes, the Integra and the Civic have always been very closely connected vehicles.
Yep.
But if you go back to literally basically any generation and you look at them side by side, that maybe the bones underneath are the same, but the aesthetics on the outside are completely different. Whereas you look at this, and it's a Civic Si with some different taillights and a different front fascia, and that's it.
Yes, Integra always had its own personality. It always had a distinctive character, and I'm just not getting that here.
No.
I'm not getting that at all. I mean, I would go so far as to say that this almost screams of desperation a little bit on Acura's part. I feel like they're trying to make something happen, but they're doing it with minimal effort. I don't think it would have been terribly difficult to take the SI and just, you know, craft some different body panels. It wouldn't, I don't think it would be that big of an expense. Yeah, they have a different front fascia, but you know what? You could have done something different with the fenders. You could have done something different with the quarters. You could have done more, Acura. You could have done more.
Yeah.
And it's sad because I mean, I was never a huge Integra fan in the beginning.
You're famously anti-Integra.
But
while we're talking, I'm trying to pull up images. I'm going to do a 94 Integra versus a 94 Civic just to show people that are watching. But
okay, well, you go ahead and do that, and I'll continue to just lament. I remember. Well, see, maybe my lackluster impression of the Integra comes about because I mean, I was just kind of getting into the real car scene through the 90s when the Integra started to get really popular, and then came Fast and Furious, and it's like, let's just take any car with an Acura badge and put a 4-inch exhaust tip on it and some underglows, and let's just go race everybody. And here I am rolling around in my 89 Ford Taurus SHO, like, ha ha ha, come on, race my Taurus, buddy, race my Taurus. I never did that on the street, by the way, and you shouldn't either. But I did meet a guy with an Integra Type R, and it was a cool car. I thought it was just awesome. I thought it sounded amazing. The guy was a really cool guy. So yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of nostalgia. I just wish Acura would take a little bit more effort here. That's all, I guess. How you doing there, Bruce?
I'm getting there. So I've got here. I will share. Here is the 99, the Civic Si, the kind of the famous Civic Si. At least when I was growing up. Obviously, there were earlier ones. So 98 to 2000 Civic Si, and I'm pulling up.
I love that car, by the way. I absolutely love that car. I had a chance to drive one once. There's nothing that I don't like about that car. The engine sounds great. I think it has just a very elegant yet sporty body, but we know underneath that car and an Integra are the same, but you get that era Integra and it doesn't look like that, does it?
No, here it is. So this is a 95 to 98 Integra GSR. So this is not a Type R. This was the step down from that. But still, you've got a lot of the same bits and pieces of the Civic. And you have to admit, they don't look alike. Like there's nothing in common there. And I just wish they had done the same thing. I wish they could have differentiated them more. I think that's the key.
And maybe Acura will. Maybe they're listening. Maybe they can pull up some different fender designs and give a little bit more flair to the front. Maybe they can do something at the back, but they probably won't. I feel like Acura, I feel like they're trying to dive into the nostalgia heartstrings with absolute minimal effort.
Yeah, that's the issue.
And minimal effort just doesn't usually get it done.
Nope.
And I think seeing everybody calling them out on social about it, I think that's telling. I think that's really telling. So
yeah,
Acura, step up, man, before it's too late. I don't know.
So
Maybe it
I
already
think
is too late.
I think we got time for one, maybe two more. I might throw one in here and push us over, but we'll see.
Well, I tell you what, let's before we jump into the next one, let me just give a quick rundown of everything that we have listed here.
Ooh, go for it.
Let's see, like 60 seconds or less. Who wants to give me a countdown? Ready? Go. BMW Concept XM, 22 Nissan Rogue, the BZ4X. We talked about that. We talked about the Porsche. We didn't talk about the Porsche Taycan GTS.
We did not.
Debuts with 590 horsepower, and you get the Sport Turismo. Go to motor1.com and to see that one. I don't think we should hit another Porsche here.
You're 20 seconds.
Dodge Jailbreaks, SRT, Hellcat Red Eye, Mazda CX-50, Mahindra Roxor.
I'm talking about that. That's the one I want to talk about.
Oh, okay. Let me get through the rest of it really quick. Another BMW prototype teaser, Kia Sportage Hybrid, Kia EV9, Hyundai 7 concept. Okay, that's it. Let's talk about your Jeep.
Okay.
Sorry, I know it's
45 seconds. So.
Okay. We did all right. I did all right. That's just a little that's just a quick look. Let's talk about your Jeep. I know the Roxor doesn't look like a Jeep anymore.
It used to.
And Jeep got pissed and I think sued them, and now it doesn't look like a Jeep anymore.
Yeah, so this was just a quick thing I wanted to hit. So
yeah,
this is
the
good. Mahindra Roxor, and I want to love this thing. It looks cool. The price of $18,899 is what pisses me off, because unless I am mistaken, I know the original Roxor was not road legal.
I don't think this one is either.
I don't believe this one is. And maybe I'm mistaken. I'm trying to look through our story because I got to be honest. I did not read through everything on this.
It doesn't have any of the safety stuff you would need to be street legal.
So I want to love it. But for $18,899, and I looked this up and I'm going to share it with you. I went on Car Gurus and I put that price in for what you could get a Jeep Wrangler in. And for 19 grand, let me scroll down for the first one that's under 19 grand. For 19 grand, you can have a 2004 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. And I know for a fact that that's road legal. You can have a 2012 Wrangler Sport, a 2010 Wrangler Sport, another 2010 Wrangler. Basically, you could have Wrangler Sports all day long for that price.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're going for here, unless they're going for like a classic nostalgia Jeep feel. I mean, that's certainly what the previous Roxor was all about.
It bothers me that it's not road legal. If I could put plates on it and, drive it around, I think it would be super cool. It'd be a really interesting alternative to those vehicles. The fact that I can't, the fact that it's, off-road use only, it bums me out.
What do the side-by-sides go for? Because I think what they're going for here isn't like a road legal vehicle, but something that has an alternative to your typical side-by-side that are really popular right now.
And to my knowledge, those vary wildly in price.
Yep.
You can go over 20, you can be at like 12 grand, 10 grand, something like that. Like it depends on what you're doing. But for a vehicle like this, you look at it, you're like, oh, that's a really neat old school Jeep. But you can buy an old school Jeep that you could actually take to wherever the hell you wanted to go. You could take it on the highway. You could take it for a little road trip, whatever. You could haul stuff around your farm for the exact same amount of money. And that's what bums me out about it. I just wish it were cheaper.
It's a curious vehicle for sure. I just tie it to side-by-sides. I see it as something. I mean, the pictures that we see show it, being on farms, doing work around farms. I mean, like a side-by-side utility vehicle, really almost. It's just, instead of having the typical side-by-side style, they're going for that classic Jeep look, which, I mean, I see cool. I see what you're saying. I don't know. I mean, if I was looking at a side-by-side, if I wanted something like that, I guess I might consider this. It's going to be simpler than a regular road legal Jeep. It's going to be easier to maintain, easier to work on.
But is it though? Because, and I will totally admit here, I don't know what Jeep CJ5, CJ7s go for. I feel like I could probably snag one for 20 grand.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have any doors, so I mean, it's not going to have all of the electronics that you're going to have in a regular road going Jeep.
Yeah,
You know,
anyway,
it won't have. Yeah, I get the point. It feels like a lost effort, maybe.
Yeah. So okay, we're at 1 hour and 15. You got one you can hit quick, or do you want to call it a day?
You know what? How about we talk about the Mazda CX-50 here really quick, just because.
Cool. Let's go.
It's an interesting. I think it's an interesting vehicle. Maybe I say that because
you're a Mazda owner.
I have a Mazda in the garage. It looks interesting. Mazda CX-50. There's still a lot that we don't know about it yet. I'm going to get it up here on the screen here in just a second. Let's take a look at it here. I think it actually looks. I mean,
it looks good
for just a kind of mid-range SUV. I think it looks great. It'll have the 2.5 liter, both naturally aspirated and turbocharged. Mazda, they don't have anything yet for power ratings. They don't have anything yet for price. We know that there's going to be a hybrid version coming. I mean, there's a lot that we don't know about it yet, obviously. But I thought it was worth talking about because, I mean, if I'm looking at an SUV, I really like how this looks. I think it just has an aggressive kind of sporty look. Mazda's always had that. I think the interior on this looks really good. I guess I really need to know more about price before
the cabin does look nice.
I could go further. I mean, a fairly nice minimalist kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind the touch screens, but I tell you what, after driving that Mach-E for just a weekend, fingerprints on those big screens, it's kind of an issue. It does not take long on those big screens to just get them all smeared up. So I have the smaller screens. That's fine. Unfortunately, Mazda's pretty good at this. They will debut vehicles, but they kind of spread the information out.
Slowly.
Power revealed at a later date, but you get a basic 60 automatic transmission, all-wheel drive. Price later date. Standard active all-wheel drive system features drive mode, select features, what Mazda calls my drive. Okay, there's a little bit more marketing speak. In other words, folks, it's going to have various drive modes that'll help get you through different situations. And I mean, I'm assuming this is going to replace the CX-5 in the lineup. I don't think we got quite that far yet, but I mean, they're sticking with the CX-30 naming scheme here. They'll go with the CX-50. It's going to enter production early next year, should go on sale sometime later next year. Is Mazda lost like Acura, do you think? Because I know for a while Mazda was touting themselves as like a near luxury brand. Well, you know, if you don't want to go to Acura, or if you don't want to go to Lexus, if you can't afford that, but you don't want just a Honda, you can go get the Mazda.
So it's funny you mentioned that. So our buddy John Neff, he was in our chat. I don't think you had signed on yet, but he made literally the exact same point that Mazda for a while was trying to move themselves up market. Now, if you look at kind of what they're debuting, they're trying to position themselves as a rugged brand. And he and I kind of had a back and forth about it. And it basically just seems like Mazda is flailing right now, and they're trying to survive by any means necessary. I've been beating this drum forever. I think Honda or Toyota are going to end up buying Mazda in the long run. And I think we're kind of seeing the death throes of a brand. That, not that this is necessarily a bad vehicle or anything like that, but Mazda, they need money. They don't necessarily know what to do. If you look at Mazda's history, you don't see a lot of off-roaders, even soft roaders from Mazda, but they know that's where the segment is right now, and that's what they have to do. And it is what it is, that this is their entry in that segment, and they're going against your Toyotas and your Subarus. And you know, is this going to be a good vehicle? It could be a great vehicle, but I don't know that a lot of Mazda customers are looking for this type of vehicle from them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that I hadn't really considered. And again, it's also going to come down to price. Sure. What is this thing going to be priced at? If it checks in higher than Toyota or Honda, they're lost. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
God, yeah.
Mazda. If you're thinking of yourself still has a step above, whether the quality is there or not, I don't think the buyers are there.
Right.
So keep your sights low on the price, and maybe this can be a thing. I'd be interested to drive it.
Keep your prices competitive. Be the Honda and the Toyota competitor that you were for decades, from the 80s and 90s and even into the 2000s. That, maybe Mazda was the third choice underneath a Honda or a Toyota, but at least they were there. Depending on what you're looking at, depending on the vehicle, I would certainly rather have a Mazda than a Mitsubishi. That, and it just seems like right now they kind of don't know where they want to be in the market. Do they want to be above those brands? Do they want to be an Acura? But in order to do that, you have to have a quality that fits that. Do you want to be, or do you want to compete against your Hondas and your Toyotas and stuff like that? And you have to have a price and a quality that fits that as well.
Yeah. What do you think, folks? What's your take on Mazda? What's your take on all of these debuts from the Los Angeles Auto Show? Email us, podcast@motor1.com. Comment on our podcast article that goes up every Friday at motor1.com. Go to our YouTube channel, Motor1 Podcasts. Oh, I have to do one last thing here before we sign out.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
I promised a friend of mine, and he's actually been on the podcast before, Jonathan Benson of Tire Reviews.
Yep.
We were chatting this afternoon, folks. He needs your help. He's looking for a sub $15,000 rear wheel drive car that he can drive daily for a little while, but something that he can also later on do some rally crossing with. Rear wheel drive rally crossing vehicle, 15,000 or less. He is in the United States here. So something in the United States, rear wheel drive. He was talking about like a 350 or something. I went totally bonkers and said, you know what? I bet you could find a 996, 911.
You could do it.
If you're brave,
might blow up, but
if you're brave and do a Safari 911. But I promised him, I said, we're going to do podcast tonight. I'll open this up to the viewers. Send in your thoughts. Send in your ideas. $15,000 or less. Rear wheel drive, something that could be a daily driver for a little while, and then be converted into something that could be fun for rallycross. So podcast@motor1.com is the email. Comment on our articles. Go to Motor1 Podcast at YouTube. Subscribe. We want to subject ourselves to whatever cruelty you listeners can come up with for our subscriber challenge. Bruce,
now I'm thinking about this.
Did I leave anything out?
You didn't leave anything. So here's my thought.
You're like rallycross.
Yeah, if you don't mind throwing this money in a trash can and possibly setting it on fire, I would honestly go Mazda RX-8. You can certainly get them for that price. The engine might explode.
You can easily get them for that price. I almost bought one for like $5,000 a few years ago.
Yeah, the engine might explode. Like, let's not mince words there.
Or you just might look at it funny and it won't start for several days.
That too.
Anyway, interesting. Send in those comments, Bruce. I think we got to wrap it up here.
Yeah, we do. As always, good afternoon, good evening, good night. As Smith was just saying, he stole my pitch. We love all your comments. We love all of your emails. We love everything that you send to us. And yeah, we appreciate it. The fact that you guys want to comment and ask questions and tell us what you like and tell us what you don't like, that's cool. That's fun. Like, we always want to make this show better. We're nearing 1 year of rambling about cars.
Oh my gosh.
We have outdone the original run of the Motor1 podcast already by several weeks. I think by like 10 weeks. So we beat that. We're pressing on forward. We can't wait for the 1 year mark, and we thank you guys. So as always, thank you for listening. Good night, goodbye, and good luck.
Bye-bye.